Hey class, this is part 2 of preserving landscapes. So we were talking about 8, 9. This is a very important statistic to actually know, and one of the things that you have to realize here is that most of these countries are actually what we call developing countries. They are developing countries. So, I mean, it seems they do need the lumber for all their construction work and for, it is a part of their economy and all of that stuff. So it is rather not prudent for developed countries like the United States to actually tell them that, hey, stop cutting your trees. Not only that, the other thing that they also do is more and more land, because developing countries have larger populations. So more and more land is incorporated into agriculture, and most of these countries have something called as a scorched earth policy. God, I hate writing this. Scorched earth. What does this mean? When they say it's scorched earth policy, they basically slash and burn. Whole chunks of forest is just burnt down, and then the ashes fall into the ground, and that kind of enriches the soil, so they have a really good topsoil, and they're able to grow. They're able to have a really good agricultural yield. Unfortunately, when you scorch and burn the earth, you do have a lot of agriculture, but it also doesn't give the animals that are there a chance to relocate. So that is a problem. The other thing that also happens that primarily causes forests to disappear is an increase in human population and requirement of land to live. So people start burning up the forest and start building houses in there. It's a very antagonistic relationship we have with the forest. While they provide us a lot of benefits, these benefits are not immediate, and they are not visual. The immediate needs of human populations is food, clothing, and shelter. So immediately, when there's a lot of land open, one of the things is, let's burn it, let's grow something, and let's put some houses there because we need places for people to live. You can't. So it becomes a situation where you can either keep the forest, or you can find places for people to live. So unfortunately, the forest doesn't have a very strong lobby fighting for them, and they don't work. So logging, 50% of forest harvested for firewood, which is really sad. Just imagine you just have to burn them. This is a very interesting picture. This is an aerial picture of forest destruction in Brazil. I am not going into like this part of it. This is just statistics. You have it in your notes, and it's also here. We just talked about monoculture forestry. 1/4 of the world's forests are managed for wood production. Much of it is replanted with a single species, a monoculture. Again, we have talked about the problems with monoculture. Just to recap, if there is a disease that spreads through them, you are going to eradicate all the plants at one stretch. Couple of countries that have done a very good reforestation program is China, Korea, and Japan. Again, look at this. All three of these countries have a very high density of population. China has a large population, but they also have a large density of population. So it is kind of important. The most important part to protect your forest is the will of people, people actually wanting to do it. And this is another important factor. Again, these are all just at this rate of deforestation, no primary growth forest will be left. in most countries outside parks and preserves by the end of this century. So, you know, most of us may not be alive to see it, but most of us may not be alive to see it. I'm sure some of us will. But it is really sad. Again, these are just statistics, just kind of look at it, memorize them, memorize certain things like, you know, like this part here, just make sure that you memorize is less than 10%. So again, remember that these slides were made in 2005, so less than 10% is now less than 8%. So just go by those numbers. Like we did talk about it, one of the biggest culprits here is cattle ranching. So there's a scorched earth policy. You burn the land, you grow as many crops on it as possible, and then when the land starts losing its nutrients and it becomes more expensive to grow anything on it, you just get a whole bunch of cattle and let the cattle graze on it. The problem with cattle grazing on it versus agriculture is that cattle will like eat the crop immediately without giving it a chance to actually come back. So in terms of agriculture, at least they're doing, you know, you grow the crop, it's about 5 to 6 months, the soil is held in place, and then, you know, you are putting some amount of effort into replenishing the land, because otherwise you can't farm. But once you have stripped the land of everything, then you just let cattle ranch, cattle like graze on it. And once, if you have, let's say you have 1,000 head of cow, they're going to eat a good chunk of grass that's growing there at one stretch. So within a couple of months, they would like eat everything that's there. And then because it's cattle ranching ground, you're really not putting in so much nutrients into it. And then slowly it becomes, it's one of the reasons why you have a ton of desertification that happens. Soy farming. Why is soy farming so important? Soy can be grown 3 times a year. So you are, for a lack of a better word, literally raping the land, because you can do 3 crops. We also, again, like I said, with human population increasing, it becomes very important for us to grow different you're trying to build roads, you're trying to build houses, all of this stuff. And, you know, land is not an infinitely available resource. There's only a finite amount of land. So we tend to have to use everything that's available. So if you think about deforestation and you think about the solution for deforestation, it's not just let's grow some plants, let's do this, let's do that. It actually comes down to climate control, you know, kind of doing something about the changing climate and doing something really quickly about the increasing population. Again, I think in the previous chapters, we have talked about the carrying capacity, and we're very close to the carrying capacity. At some point of time, it is going to tip over. Rainforest burning. Fires are a direct result of changing climates. The climate becomes more arid. There's less humidity. You know, trees die out. There's so much of dry kindling available for the fire. One small spark will set the whole thing ablaze. And there's a lot of human error that takes place. You know, people throw things out. People go out camping. They leave something. They're careless. They leave something and they burn the whole place down. The other thing that has caused a lot of deforestation, please remember this is going to be very important for writing your essays, is biofuel production. We always tend to think that, oh, we're doing biofuel production, we're like we are less reliant on you know, digging oil from the ground. But biofuel production is a huge problem also, because in Southeast Asia, in like Malaysia, Indonesia, and all these places, 87, I think according to conservation.com, it's about 85 to 90% of the forests have like been converted into palm oil trees. because they do need this oil for all sorts of things, like human population, the growth of human population, and the progress, evolution of human beings, or the progress of human population is actually directly connected to the use of oil. Um, so we see something similar happening in the United States also. We're not getting rid of forests. I mean, we are getting rid of certain, the preserved land for agriculture, and the crop that, especially after we started using ethanol as an additive for our gasoline and stuff like that, we have started to go more in terms of monocultures. We're producing more corn and we're producing more soy. Both of them are used for biofuels. So while yes, we are becoming less dependent on oil from the ground, digging out oil, we are also changing our own landscape and waiting for the next dust bowl to happen, because think about the United States, all we need is some kind of pest or some kind of fungi or bacteria or anything to attack corn crops, and everything will be gone. So that's a problem. One of the places, again, if you look at the places that are the most affected by deforestation, is going to be like developing countries, but they are also one of the countries that do an amazing job in trying to protect them. 12% of the world's forests are protected. Again, if you look at these areas, they are places that are very tourist friendly. So this is one of those things where when you have ecotourism, you tend to protect the land, these forests better, because it becomes an immediate source of income. So if you look at Brazil, Costa Rica, and parts of Africa, in Africa it's usually Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, not the places that are war torn, but places that people go to as tourists. They are better able to protect their forests. Indian reservations are another place where there is a lot of where they do preserve the land. It is the forestation, the forests that are preserved in Indian reservations in the United States and in India as a culture is because the people are still very reliant and dependent on the land itself. So in this case, indigenous people make a huge difference. Having in this indigenous people and people who live within that ecosystem of the forest make a huge difference. One of the things that also does happen that nobody really pays too much attention to when a forest comes down is the loss of indigenous people. That is a loss of a language, a loss of a culture, a loss of the collective knowledge within that culture that's completely lost. I think the UN puts the statistics that so far we've lost about 6,000 different languages and 6,000 different cultures, which is really sad, because we are losing a part of who we are. We are losing a collective history of actually who we are. The debt nature swaps, this is conservation. Basically, the best way to think about this is the carbon swap points are similar to the debt of nature swaps. Okay, every single type of forest is threatened, and the reasons for them are exactly the same, whether it's a rainforest, it's a boreal forest, it's a tropical forest. There's a large population growth. We need more food. We need more roads. We need more houses. So you have to burn the forests because you need to grow stuff, or you need to log so that you can have roads and trains and all of that stuff. There is a lot of mineral deposits under these forests, so then there is mining that happens. The story is the exact same thing. It is directly related. It is not just it's not just correlation. They are directly related. It is a cause and effect. As our population increases and our needs as a people increases, our forests decreases. So doesn't matter. So when you're writing your essay, it does not matter what forest it is, the causes are the same. Everything related to growth in population.